So X-Men Dark Phoenix, or just Dark Phoenix, whatever its actual name is. I wasn't expecting much going into this movie, obviously because X-Men Apocalypse was such a huge step down in terms of quality and storytelling from the previous X-Men movies, but also because of the countless rewrites that apparently were a kind of a day-to-day thing, according to Sophie Turner. So like I said, I wasn't expecting too much. If you were going into this movie expecting like a great movie, like a triumphant finale, you must have been kidding yourself. I mean, I too wanted it to be at least good, but I wasn't getting my hopes up a lot. By the time I went and saw the movie, it had a, if I'm not mistaken, 27% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But I'll say after seeing the movie, I'll say this that it's not that bad. Like 27% is like what, a 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10. It's not that bad. Like it's bad, but not that bad. It's definitely a mess of a movie, but I think I myself found some enjoyable stuff in it. So talking about the stuff that made this movie an absolute mess, first of all, the continuity. It doesn't make sense how it fits into the timeline. First of all, because obviously at the end of X-Men Apocalypse, Jean Grey obviously emits some kind of dark, some kind of phoenix-like energy, something like that. But then in this movie, we see that no, the phoenix energy is just arrives in this movie at the beginning of this movie. So that scene is a bit confusing in that case. And also, it doesn't make sense how the characters from this movie set in 1992, in the matter of 8 years, aged so bad until you can see how they look like in X-Men, which was set in the 2000s. Because these are part of the same timeline now, we have to pay attention to that. Writers, I know you haven't been paying attention to that, but people pick these things up, it makes them wonder, and it takes them out of the movie. But apart from the continuity, the movie by itself, it had a messy writing. Especially the second act, everything slows down. A lot of people said they found the movie boring, and I can understand why. There are some action set pieces and some other scenes that build up the tension, but they're way too few, so the rest of the movie comes off as really slow and boring, as if nothing really happens. And some of the characters make some questionable decisions in this movie. Why do writers these days keep doing this a lot? They've done that with Luke Skywalker. They did that with Daenerys, and then in this movie as well. When you see it, you'll see that some characters have really, really changed. Especially the Professor X. He comes off as a dick in this movie. You'll see why. I mean, he's not a perfect human being, but the previous movies have established that in a good way. But in this movie, it comes off as sudden because the mistakes that he made in the previous movies were sort of, how to explain it? It's a bit difficult, but when you see the movie, you'll see that something about Professor X, there is something about him that is not right, and there is also another character who makes a drastic change regarding his allegiance. You'll see who that is as well. So some of the characters are ruined, and the messing is bad, and the villains are, if they are, if you can call them villains. Thing is, I almost forgot to talk about them. Like I just remembered them now because I was trying to think of the things that really were really bad and insignificant. And the villains in this movie, namely Jessica Chastain, they were so forgettable and boring. I mean, Apocalypse, as in the Apocalypse himself in X-Men, Apocalypse had more of a character and presence than these villains. I know Jean Grey is the main character, but if you are going to present some other antagonists, some other villains, bad guys, you have to at least make them memorable at least. But like I said, I almost completely forgot about them. So bad writing, forgettable villains, ruined some characters. And another thing that for me personally ruined the movie is how I already knew how it was going to play out from the two trailers and the poster for the movie. I think if you put them together, you can pretty much tell what was going to happen. I mean, I had an idea for the entire movie. Like I told to myself, like, okay, based on the things I've seen in the trailers, and the movie is going to start like this, then this is going to happen, she's going to go there, then this is going to happen, then she's going to go there, and then here we are going to have the finale, and it played out exactly like that. It definitely reduced any enjoyment that I could have had with the movie, because like I said, the trailers just showed too much, so nothing in it was actually new for me. Like I said, despite these things, there are some good things in this movie. Um, for example, Michael Fassbender, uh, this guy can act. I mean, this guy really, even though his story here is literally the same thing that we've seen before, but still he manages to somehow act his way through it and add something new to it. I'd say he's just a great actor, and I'm going to be sad to see him go away. James McAvoy, he's good as Professor X as well. Like these two characters, I'm excited to see the new X-Men in the Marvel universe, but I'm going to miss these actors so much. And Sophie Turner, she showed a bit more range than I've seen her do in her other works, but still, she didn't have any charisma. That's the problem with Sophie Turner. Like whenever I see her, she's not charismatic. She doesn't give up a lot of energy. Like I cannot get behind her or get invested in her story or anything. It was really, I mean, she wasn't terrible, but she was like, you know, it was like I guess it was serviceable, but that's not saying a lot in an X-Men movie. And the CGI was decent, it was alright. There were actually some good action scenes, were more towards the end, but like I said, there were some scenes that build up the tension in the movie, and like that's the only good things I can say. Some enjoyable scenes, the acting. Oh yeah, and one more things. Listen, as soon as I've said it before in my other videos as well, probably, well, maybe one of them. But as I've said before, I always pay a lot of attention to the music in films and video games. And in this movie, the first music that started playing, the first soundtrack in the first couple of minutes, I immediately knew something was different. I literally was in shock. I was sitting there in the cinema thinking to myself, hang on a minute, this soundtrack is on another level. I mean, the previous X-Men movies have had decent one, even decent soundtracks, even great ones like the ones in X-Men Days of Future Past. But this was something else. I mean, it was different. It was on another level, like I said. But so immediately after the movie, I went and downloaded the album on Spotify, and guess what? Hans Zimmer, the god himself, is the one who composed the music for this movie. So of course, being Hans Zimmer, his music is great, and it's definitely his scores definitely elevated a lot of the scenes in the movie, especially the sort of main theme of Dark Phoenix called Dark. Is a great theme, it's a great song, and it definitely elevated a lot of movie, but I'm sad that it was wasted on this movie. Same with the actings, the actors and everything else. It was a shame that it was wasted on this movie because it felt like Fox was trying to give out just one final movie rather than trying to give any sort of decent ending or finale to their universe. So at the end, overall, it comes off more as a forgettable experience. Like I said, it's not terrible, but if I had to give it a rating, it would be like a 4 out of 10. Yeah, 4 out of 10, or maybe even a 3. It's a mess. I wanted to enjoy it more, but it was just boring and messy. And at no point was I really excited. At no point did I have a lot of investment. So unfortunately, that's the last X-Men movie we are going to get with Fox. Now we'll just have to see what Marvel is going to do with that.